Hello everyone, it's so nice to be with you. Today we are going to start to learn the new rhythms and do the rhythm practice pages for level 6 of the Rhythm Rainbow. How exciting. You're coming along so well. I'm so proud of you. So let's just learn these new rhythms. So you need to know what this is. Now, if you're really clever, you'll notice this is on a yellow page. And you remember what else is on the yellow pages, right? So this, yes, this is also a rest. This is an 8th note rest. It's a half a beat rest. So this is a half a beat rest, this funny looking thing here, which you'll see in this level 6. It's a half a beat rest. It's an 8th note rest, okay? 8th note rest, half a beat rest, half a beat rest, half a beat rest. Just take a look between this, the 8th note rest, and the quarter note rest. Both are very funny looking, aren't they? So this is a 1 beat rest, rest, 1 beat rest, rest. And this is a 8th note rest, or a half a beat rest, half a beat rest, half a beat rest. It's going to be shorter than the quarter rest. Rest is this one, the quarter note rest. Rest, rest. The 8th beat rest is just rest, rest. It's going to be much shorter, okay? Rest is the quarter beat rest, rest. The 8th beat rest is a little shorter, rest. And then you keep going, okay? So that's the new one. And these are our new notes. So notice this. Look at the difference. When you see the 8th notes, which you know are TTs, right? They have 2. These 2 equals 1 beat. And there is 1 beam across. And when that beam is cut, it turns into 1 flag. And those are 8th notes, are TTs. Now, this you'll see is different. There are 4 notes, and there are 2 beams across. If you were to see one of these notes, there would be 2 flags coming down. We're just going to work with the 4 across right now. All 4 together equals 1 beat, just like with the 8th notes, 2 together equals 1 beat. Now the 8th notes, 2 together equals 1 beat. So 1 8th note equals half a beat. Now look at this. 4 together equal 1 beat. So 1 alone equals a quarter of a beat. If that doesn't make sense to you yet, do not worry, it will come along. Depends where you are in school. It depends what your background is and what you know. But 4 beats together of these notes with the 2 beams across, or 2 flags, 4 of them together equals 1 beat. So 1 alone equals a quarter. Remember, there are 4 quarters in $1, 4 quarters in $1. So 1 quarter is what one of these notes equals. 1 quarter, 2, 3, 4. So the name of these notes, the full name, we need to learn that. The full name of these notes are 16th notes. Say it with me. 16th notes, 16th notes, 16th notes, 16th notes. It's so weird. It equals a quarter, but it's called a 16th note. And this equals half, but it's called an 8th note. It's a little strange. There is a reason, but it's a little strange. 16th notes, 16th notes, 16th notes, 16th notes. Now, as I've told you, 1/16th note equals a quarter of a beat. It equals a quarter of a beat, okay? And the way we say this, the nickname for this is tiri tiri. Can you say it? Tiri tiri. Again, tiri tiri. Let's look at it. Tiri tiri. Do you see tiri tiri? Tiri tiri. It has to be in, we have to say it in one beat. Tiri tiri. Tiri tiri. Tiri tiri. Tiri tiri. Good. Tiri tiri. Tiri tiri. Tiri tiri. Tiri tiri. Fantastic. So let's play that. Make sure you get out your kitchen roll tubes, your rhythm sticks, your pens, or use your table with your hands or your lap. So let's try playing them. It's tiri tiri. Tiri tiri with me. Tiri tiri again. Tiri tiri. Fantastic. When we play tiri tiris, when we're starting, we're going to have to slow everything down because we have to get 4 of those notes into one beat. So I'm going to slow things down. I'm going to give you some rhythms to hear, and I want you to repeat them after me. So tiri tiri ta, ti ti ta. Tiri 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 ti ti ta. Ta, tiri tiri ti ti. Tiri 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 ti ti ta. Ti rest ti ti ta. Ta ti 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 rest ta. Ti rest tiri tiri ta. Ti rest ta, ti ti ta. Ti rest ti ti ta. Ta, ti rest ta. Ta, tiri tiri ti rest ta. Ti rest, tiri tiri ti rest. Okay, so how you doing? You doing well? It's new, it's a little different. Remember your half a beat rest. That's when I say T rest, ta. So it would be like T rest, and then a ta. T rest, tiri tiri ta. Something like that. So T rest. That's what that looks like. T rest. And remember, tiri tiri. And you know what a ta looks like. Okay? So let's look at practice page 1, line A. Let's just look at that. I'm going to do the first measure, and then I want you to repeat. And then I'll do the second measure, and then I want you to repeat. Then I'll do the third measure, and I want you to repeat. Fourth measure, I want you to repeat. And you'll notice that the first 2 measures are actually the same, and the last 2 measures of line A are actually the same. So I play, then you play. Ready? Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, ti, rest. Good. Measure 2. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Good. Does that make sense? Really read it. Do it again. These first 2 measures together. I do it, then you do it. Okay? Together. Ready? Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Your turn. Good. How you doing? You really reading that? Read, read, read. Now, the third measure, listen and repeat. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. Try it. Ta, ta, ti. Good. Fourth measure, ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti. How are you doing? Let's do those third and fourth measures together. Ready? 1, 2, third measure, go. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta, 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 ti, rest, ta. Fantastic. Now let's do the whole thing. Line A, the whole thing. Ready? Let's try it. Let's do it together. I'll do it loudly with you. Do it as loud as you can. 1, 2, A, go. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. Fantastic. Let's just do it again. 1, 2, A, go. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. How did you do? I'm sure you're doing great. That's really awesome. Let's go to B, okay? B also just has, for something new, it's only the 8th rest. So it's the T rest. That's the only new thing we have in this line. So let's just see if we can play it together. Look at the music. Read the music. You know these notes. B, 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, rest, ta. 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 How did that go? Let's do it again. 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, rest, ta. 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 Fantastic. Could we do A and B together? Let's do that, those two together. A and B. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. B. Ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, rest, ta. 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 Good for you. Are you looking a little bit ahead? That's going to be very helpful. You look just a little bit ahead. Now, go to C. We have the tiri-tiris here. So we have to make sure that our tempo is not so fast that it will be really hard to play the tiri-tiris. Now, if you are playing on your desk or on your lap, make sure that you use both hands when you play the tiri-tiris. Tiri-tiri. Otherwise, if you do tiri-tiri, it will be very slow. Tiri-tiri. Tiri-tiri. Use both hands. Does that make sense? So let's try C. Just listen to the first measure and repeat it right after me, okay? 1, 2, ready, my turn. Ta, ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Try it. Ta, ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Good. Let's do it again. Ta, ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Good. I think we can do the whole line. Let's try the whole line together. Say it out really loud, okay? 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Ta, ta, rest, ta. Ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta. Good for you. Let's try it one more time. C. 1, 2, together, go. Ta, ta, tiri, tiri, ta, 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 rest, ta, ta, ti, rest, ta, 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 ti, rest, ta, ta. Fantastic. Now let's go to D. Do the first measure with me. Can you do it with me? Let's do it twice, the first measure twice. So if you don't get it right the first time, you can pick it up and fix it for the second time. Just the first measure. Ready? Ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Again, ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Good. Let's try the second measure, just like we did the first measure, twice through. Okay, let's try second measure. 1, 2, ready, play. Ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Again, ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Good. Now try the third measure. Ready, go. Ta, iti, ta, tiri, tiri. Again, go. Ta, iti, ta, tiri, tiri. How did you do? I'm sure you're doing really well. So let's go to D and play the whole thing through, okay? Together. 1, 2, together. D. Ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Ta, iti, ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Ah. Good, I had to breathe there. Okay, could we just do C and D together? Only C and D. That will be a little helpful because those are just the 16th notes. We're adding the 8th rest as well. Well, let's do C and D together because we did A and B together. So let's do C and D together first. 1, 2, C together. Ta, ta, tiri, tiri, ta. Ta, ta, rest, ta. Ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta, ta, D, ta, tiri, tiri, ta, ta, tiri, tiri, ta, ta, iti, ta, tiri, tiri, ta. How do you do? I'm sure it was really good. And if it wasn't, you get to just keep going back. But let's go through A, B, C, and D together, okay? Before you go back, let's do that all together and see how you do. I will call out each letter name for the new line. So if you aren't with us, you can pick it up with us at the beginning of the next line. If some things fall apart, don't worry, that happens. That happens in music. That's why we practice. Practice, practice. Keep practicing. That's how you get better. You will make mistakes. You will fail to succeed. You have to fail in order to succeed. It's just the way it is. That's normal. Okay? There is no shame in failing. That's how we learn. We fix it. We may do something wrong and we fix it. We fix it, constantly fixing. And then eventually it just gets easier. So you'll go back to level 1 and level 2 after doing this level, even probably level 3, and think this is easy. You will certainly think level 1 is easy. No problems whatsoever. If you go back and read those pages, you'll be like, no problem whatsoever. And that's what you can do too, is you go further ahead, then go back. Go back to the easier levels and you'll get even better. You'll move up even more. After doing this harder stuff, go back to the easier stuff, just as a practice, because we practice, because we're musicians, we practice. So go back and you'll see how far you've come. And that's exciting. That's just, feels good. Feels good inside when you know how far you've come. So let's do A, B, C, and D. This is level 6 practice page 1. Ready? 1, 2, together, play. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, T rest ta, B ta, T rest ta, ta, T rest 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 ta, C ta, ta, tiri tiri ta, 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 rest ta, ta, T rest ta, 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 T rest ta, ta, D ta, tiri tiri ta, ta, tiri tiri ta, ta, ti ta, tiri tiri ta. Great. How do you do? Shall we do it one more time? Let's do it one more time together. You're doing really well. This is hard stuff, and you're just doing really well. Keep at it. A, 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ti, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, ta, ti, rest, ta. B, ta, ti, rest, ta. Ta, T rest 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 ta, C ta, ta, tiri tiri ta, 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 rest ta, ta, T rest ta, 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 T rest ta, ta, D ta, tiri tiri ta, ta, tiri tiri ta, ta, ti ta, tiri tiri ta. Fantastic. That's so great. You're doing a great job. You know, you can also go back and practice the beginning, level 1, and don't use the tas and titis. Just play it and see how you do. And see if you can do that when you go to level 2. The further you get along, the more you'll be able to do that. So you can just say those rhythms in your head. Want to do that? Let's do that for this level. I know it's new. Let's just do line A, and we're just going to say it in our head and see if you can keep it going. Ready? A, 1, 2, A, go. How did you do? I bet you did a great job. Good for you. That's always a way to make it a little harder. If you feel like, oh, this is easy, I'm really getting it, I get it, then you can take the names away and just keep them in your head and see how you do. Congratulations, that was a great job. We're going to go on to 2 next. Okay, bye. Hi everyone. My name's Diana Jacklin. I'm an opera singer, song recitalist, and voice teacher, but I'm also offering you this base for musical foundations. Please enjoy it. I'm just spreading the joy so that more of the world can enjoy making music. If this is useful to you, please subscribe and please like. And thank you very much. Bye everyone.